Hello, welcome to episode 7, I think? 7 of Cocktails and Controllers. This week we are covering the game Oxenfree, which is a cute little 2D game by Night School. It is available, I believe, on Xbox, PS4, and your phone, funnily enough, because that's actually where I played it. I double bought it on my phone and on PS4, because I'm psycho like that.
And Steam, too.
And Steam, yes. It is a really good game. It's got like a really, really nice aesthetic. But we'll cover that more in general. This is your very last spoiler warning for this game. We are going through everything, all the choices that you can make, or most of the choices that you can make, I believe. Because I'm sure even there's some choices that I didn't make, that Marisa didn't make, that we will probably not cover. So if you missed it, let us know in a comment below. So Marisa, what are you drinking this week?
I have the peanut butter whiskey again, this time mixed with root beer.
Oh.
And I've already drank some. It's really good with root beer.
I would try that. I tried the peanut butter whiskey last weekend when I was playing D&D.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I told you, it's so good.
So good.
And then for my shot, it's not Fireball, but it's Fireball adjacent. It's Catch Fire, whatever. Someone on the Total Wine website was like recommended it because it has less sugar than Fireball, but yep, that's what I'm drinking.
All right. For my shot today, I'm still back on the Apple Smash Captain Morgan. That's the wrong side. The Apple Smash Captain Morgan. Still its odd green color, but I'm over that at this point. I'm also doing for my drink Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey Whiskey, again in the miniature bottle that Marisa got me for my birthday. I drank part of it. Oh, by the way, so it's in this wonderful little tumbler here. I'm covering up the logo because it is from my company. But it's quite honestly one of the best tumblers I've ever had because the inside is metal, and so I stuck it in the freezer. And so now it's just hella cold, and it's so good. Super fun. I love using it. But yeah, so I was drinking this Tennessee Honey Whiskey with Pepsi because I couldn't find Coke. And it actually brought me back to college days where this was like I had this one whiskey that I hid in my dorm. Sorry. And it was
Apologizing.
I don't know. But it was this pecan pie whiskey that I found, and it was like a limited edition, and I couldn't find it anywhere after it was finished. So this is actually quite honestly the exact same taste, and it brought back some good college day memories. There are actually 2 summaries on the Night School website. You'll find them. I linked them down below. There is one that you'll find at the top of the page right under the trailer, and that reads, a supernatural teen thriller about a group of friends who unwittingly open a ghostly rift. You are Alex, and you just brought your new stepbrother Jonas to an overnight island party gone horribly wrong. Their second summary, which I will also read, delves a little bit more into the plot, and that one is, Oxenfree is a single-player game that's equal parts coming-of-age tale and a supernatural thriller. You play as Alex, a bright, rebellious teenage girl who brings her new stepbrother Jonas to an overnight party on a decommissioned military island. The festivities are framed by a dangerous sneak to a forbidden beach, celebrating with friends and navigating prickly situations with enemies. But the night takes a horrifying turn when you unwittingly open a ghostly rift spawned from the island's cryptic past. How you deal with the ominous creatures I skipped a whole sentence there. How you deal with these events, your peers, and the ominous creatures you've unleashed is up to you. So this game is entirely choice-based. Of course, there is a narrative in there as well, but the choices that you make do matter towards which ending you're going to get. And I believe there are 4 or 5 different endings, depending. We will cover those as well. Fair warning, it's been a while since I've played this game. And I'm pretty sure, Maurice, it's also been a while for you, too.
I think I played it the day it came out.
Oh,
so
did you?
that's been like 4 years ago.
See, I played this last year because I actually didn't know this game existed up until one of our other friends said, hey, you should really play this game. It's really good. And so I asked you about it, and I was like, hey, have you heard of this game? And you told me it was really good. And usually if you think a game is really good, I'll think it's really good. Like, I trust your taste in games. So I ended up playing it on my phone, funny enough, when I was on my way to see my dad in the Philippines. So I spent the whole plane ride there playing Oxenfree. So you're playing as Alex, as mentioned in the summary. And I believe it's your high school graduation or some graduation, and that's why you're going to Edwards Island. And it's sort of like a tradition for these kids, and you're going with like your stoner best friend, who's Ren, your stepbrother Jonas, who's super new, by the way. There's a conversation as you're taking the ferry to Edwards Island where Ren will ask Jonas, hey, have you unpacked all of your stuff yet? And Jonas will say that he just moved in like that day or something like that. But you're meeting your other two friends there, which are Clarissa and Nona. And Clarissa, by the way, is like the bitch of the the game. She's an absolute a-hole to you. And that's because she used to date Alex's dead brother, Michael. And she kind of blames Alex for his death, which you'll find out later on towards the end of the game. We'll cover it when we get there. But her brother basically drowns, and Clarissa blames it on Alex, and so they have not been friendly with each other since his death. Nona is Clarissa's best friend. She's such a sweetheart. Ren has a huge crush on her, and depending on your choices in the game, Ren and Nona will either end up together or not. Personally, I chose to let them be together because they're super cute, and Nona is such a sweetheart. So
I don't remember this game.
Don't.
I don't know what I did. I think I probably did the same, but I don't know. But it was really funny because I watched a playthrough of it again to refresh my memory, and then I also watched when Game Grumps used to have that show Steam Train. They played it, and I think that's where I heard of it from, because I watched that same day, and then I went and bought it also same day when it came out. But they were playing it, and all of the choices they made, like, you know, in that beginning part when they're playing Truth or Slap, and they were just like, they were just outing Ren that he liked her, and then she was just like, this is weird. And I think if they had continued with that playthrough, they would have like pushed her away, and I think that's really funny.
I forgot about Truth or Slap, actually. That was really interesting. I think that's where I came up with that drinking game that I wanted to do, but like no one ever played it with me, which was Truth or Shot. So it's not Truth or Dare, it's Truth or Thought. Truth or Shot.
Truth or Thought. Truth or Thought.
Truth or Thought. But basically, like, if you don't want to answer the question, you take a shot. And I was like, that's a real good way to get fucked up really fast.
I would just not tell anyone anything.
So then you would drink all the time.
And then I would die.
Yep. You kind of start to find out a little bit about these characters, even before they get to meet up with Clarissa and Nona. And one of the things is that Alex is this radio personality, DJ, savant, whatever it is. And so she carries around this radio, and this radio is super, super important to the plot itself. Because there's a rumor that goes around that says if you bring a radio to Edwards Island, you get to pick up on radio signals that are no longer there. So it adds to that supernatural aspect of it. But you can also use this radio to tune into different radio stations all around the island, which is really cool because they give you like these little tourist boards, and then they'll have a frequency number on it, and you can turn to that frequency, find out about the history. Which, by the way, that's actually super important if you want to play that, to tune into those radio stations, because then you'll get a little bit of backstory, a little bit of lore, but also it becomes super important later on down the story. Later on down the story. Starting off so well. I'm not even drunk yet.
That you know of.
That I know of, truth. So you also get to find out through Ren, because he's a little bit of a history buff on this island, just this island in particular, nothing else. But you find out that there's only one resident on the island, and she died 3 days prior, and her name is Maggie Adler. She owns this mansion, and she becomes important later on down the line, which is, of course, why she's mentioned, Chekhov's gun.
We didn't do our shot.
We didn't do our shot! We didn't do our shot. Okay, late shot in this game. Let's do it. I was like, something feels different today.
I was like, why am I not see it?
I know, me too. I was like, something feels off. Okay, let's drink. Let's do this. Kanpai.
Cheers. Kanpai.
How does it taste?
I like Fireball better.
That's fair. Okay, so I left off with Maggie Adler. We'll get into her history later, but she's really important to the story. So either way, you guys meet up with Clarissa and Nona, and that's where you start your little teenage party. Because let's be honest, they're all teenagers here. And I guess as teenagers do. I was never one of these teenagers, so I don't really know. I'm just pretending. They all sit around a campfire, and you can do a bunch of things, but one of the most important things that you can do, or should do, is play Truth or Slap. And this is a game where it's truth or dare, except if you don't want to tell the truth, you get slapped instead. And you can do a bunch of...
It was, if they tell the truth, but you can prove that they're lying about it, then you get to slap them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I forgot about that bit.
And it used to be called Hippo, but then they had to change the name because people were like, why do you call it Hippo? And then I think there was a punchline there, but I don't remember it.
Got it. Okay. So fun fact, I actually didn't know that part. And then you decide that things are not exactly getting as fun as you want them to. So Ren suggests you go to the opening of this cave and you tune in to some of the frequencies that are there because, you know, ghost shit, why not? And so you turn on your radio and you start tuning into some spooky shit, right? And this is kind of the first indication you get, like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. Because you and all of your friends, you black out after tuning into these radio stations, and you hear like voices and you see like flashes of shit. By shit, I mean like visions and things. And then once you wake up, you realize that you're scattered all across the island. Alex and Jonas are together in this when they wake up. But Ren and Clarissa and Nona are nowhere to be found. So you have to go and find them. So Jonas and Alex, they wake up in front of this communications tower, which I think is called something Meadows. Tranquility Meadows? I think it's like Tranquility something. There's a meadow somewhere in there.
I don't know any of the names. I can't help you.
I think it's Tranquility. Whatever. The name will be down there. Your face, like, does not enjoy that off-brand fireball.
I'm gonna give it to my dad because he seemed to enjoy it, but like, I do have the Malibu there, but it's also not mine, so I don't want to drink all of it. I'm debating on whether to get the moonshine.
Ooh, do it. Do it.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
How do I pour the moonshine? It's in a mason jar. How am I gonna...
Drink it from the mason. Stick a straw in the mason jar to drink it that way.
But anyway, I still don't know how to like fucking pour it. So I brought this McDonald's straw so I can like suction it. I don't know if that'll work, but maybe.
I don't know if that'll work. You should get like a spoon.
A spoon? I'm gonna make more of a mess with a spoon.
Like even like a measuring spoon?
No, I'm gonna make more of a mess.
So Alex and Jonas, they wake up together in front of this communications tower in like Tranquility something. And decide that, hey, well, we've got this radio, it's a communications tower, maybe we can radio out to see if there's like somebody on the island, figure out where our friends went. And so you have to climb up this tower. And let me tell you, the first time I had to climb up this tower, I was so dumb and I didn't know you were supposed to climb up. And so I just kept walking back and forth on the ground until I had to like Google it, and I was like, oh, You're supposed to climb the tower, so I did. I'm a dumbass. So I climbed the tower after I googled how to do that. Climb the tower, and then when you get to the top, you find like a bunch of like radio equipment because this is a communications tower. While you're there, you get a call from Ren, and you get a call from Clarissa. I don't know where Nona is. I don't actually remember.
You just find her.
I think you just
on the
I think you
road.
just find her.
She's just standing there.
Yeah. So
I made a mess.
did you? Oh, he woke up somewhere in the woods, which I think are called the Whispering Woods.
In the woods.
In the woods. They're somewhere in the woods.
Of course they are.
Right? It's an island, and for some reason that island has woods.
Most islands have woods.
They like forest and shit?
Yeah.
I'm total I'm hella thinking like beach shit, you know?
Like desert island?
Yeah, like desert islands. Like palm trees or whatever, but this is like a full ass forest. Woods.
Mm-hmm.
And then Clarissa calls from this decommissioned military fort. And she says that she just found this radio and she just turned it on and for some reason was patched directly into the communications tower. So you have a choice now whether you find Ren first or Clarissa first. Personally, I chose to find Clarissa first because she seemed like she was the one who was most in danger. And I didn't want her to like die or something and then it was going to be all my fucking fault again. By again, I mean Michael. So I chose to find Clarissa because Ren seemed like, okay, I'm just going to chill in the forest. It'll be okay. So I went to go find...
high.
That's true. He can just get a high and he's fine.
You gotta help him. He's freaking out over there.
They're both freaking out, but Clarissa seemed like she was the most in danger, being in an abandoned military fort.
I didn't go for her. I was like, you saw Clarissa. I'm gonna go get Ren first. Yeah.
She was a dick, I will say that. But on my second playthrough, I definitely went for Ren first. Turns out it doesn't matter which order you get them in. Spoilers? Question mark?
Probably.
I went for the Clarissa first, and so what I did is I went and I followed the path. There's a mini map, not a mini map. It's a map that pops up. You can access it at any time, and you basically can figure out what path you need to take to get to each character. And I'm going to pause here and let's talk about the art style of this because it is such a good game with such a good art style. It's something that I'd never really experienced before, and I'm not a huge fan of like 2D platformer type games. But this, however, takes it on a whole different level where it's actually... It's a really good style, and I think it's almost like a timeless style. But it's a really nice aesthetic, I think. Also, the music, I think, personally, I think the music matches really, really well with this game. I actually have the soundtrack to it, which a few bonus tracks that are in there, the version that I have. But it's really, really good, and I personally recommend it. It's a little spooky, I will say, but that's only because I also get spooked by a bunch of things. Like, I'm a little bitch when it comes to scary things. And I consider this game hella scary, but it's really good.
It wasn't that scary.
Okay, it's not that scary compared to something like Outlast. There are a few jump scares in here.
Are there?
Yes, there were. In my opinion, there were a couple jump scares in there.
I don't think so.
Okay. But then again, you laughed at Annabelle, so...
Annabelle's a funny movie. The height of comedy.
See what
Annabelle 2, specifically. The part where she gets pushed down the hill.
You are a monster. As you're going to find Clarissa or Ren, I chose to find Clarissa first. So as you're going through you're going through a couple paths that you have to get to find Clarissa. You start to experience some supernatural things. And one of these things is that you start to experience like deja vu, essentially. And Alex will address this. For example, when you're in the forest and you're trying to find Ren, you have to cross this path where you see this kickball, and you can kick it, and it rolls back to you. And you essentially play a game of kickball to yourself.
Isn't it like a soccer ball?
Yeah, it's a soccer ball. And you can kick it back and forth, and you also can see your reflection in the water, and your reflection will say something to you, which is interesting because you can pick the choices that your reflection will say to you. And you don't know what they mean quite yet. You'll get there towards the end of the game. And you can either choose to listen to what your reflection says or not. Because you are playing as both, you can essentially pick whatever you want, listen to whoever you want to. There's a point where you pass this campfire, and then in one time loop it's on, and the next time loop it's off. But you repeat this event so many times that you as Alex can tell Jonas, hey, I think we're in a time loop. And at first Jonas kind of doesn't know what you're talking about. Later on in the story, they all figure out, hey, they're in a time loop, and they all start to kind of remember things that are happening to them. Alex, being the main character, of course, remembers all of this happening. And so every time you're in a time loop, you find these, they're called reel-to-tapes. And they're essentially these machines where you have to rewind these reels, and it takes you back to the start of your time loop, and you can pass through without that time loop restarting. So this happens a few times while you're in the woods, while you're trying to find Clarissa. As you're doing this, you actually bump into Nona. So Nona's the first character that you find while you're searching for your friends. Nona seems relatively unharmed, and you can tell her... sorry.
She's scared of you when you approach her.
That's right. She is scared of you because she saw an alternate version of Jonas and you. And so you have to convince her that, hey, like, we're not the doppelgangers. We're us. We're your friends. It's fine. And eventually she will believe you because that's what story dictates. And then you can tell her, hey, go up to the communications tower. We'll meet you there. So Nona doesn't come with you for either Ren or Clarissa. She'll meet you at the tower. So then you can find either one of your friends. I'm going to cover Clarissa first because that was the path I went down. And so you go to the military fort, and you have to make your way through this building. And this is where your first sort of jump scare happens. I'm calling it a jump scare because I was fucking terrified the first time it happened to me. But you enter into this classroom, right? And this is where listening to the radios become really, really important. Because when you're in this classroom, Jonas gets possessed, and you have to talk to this ghost. And this ghost will ask you trivia questions. And if and only if you listened to any of the radio stations around the military base or anything that you've encountered so far, you will be able to pass this quiz relatively easy. I got it wrong a couple times. Honestly, in this first one, there's no real consequence to missing these questions. It just kind of makes the ghost angrier, and it kind of makes you realize that, hey, maybe I should be listening to these radio signals, podcasts, whatever they are. But basically, you pass this, not really pass this quiz, but you have to retune into this radio, and you realize that this radio is kind of your key to making these ghosts disappear. And you can easily find this because they're signaled by a red light. There's one on top of this signal tower that you'd find. There's one in that classroom that you find. So tuning into these radio stations will trigger certain events. And I highly recommend triggering said events because they help move your plot forward. You get a little bit more backstory. And overall, it just kind of makes your gaming experience a little bit better. But after you pass this quiz, or don't pass this quiz, you find out that this ghost that you're talking to, that the things that are probably haunting this island are the passengers of this ship called the Kanaloa. And the Kanaloa was this ship that...
A World War II ship.
It was a World War... Yeah, you're right. It was a World War II ship. and it sunk. And all the passengers were thought to have died. And so you believe that the passengers of the Kanaloa are the ones who are haunting this island. So fast forwarding to when you actually find Clarissa, you go through the building and you enter a time loop where you see Clarissa and she talks to you and she's possessed. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she's possessed. And then you watch her go to the window and she jumps and she falls and she commits suicide essentially. So of course you freak out, you go to find her, you run outside and she isn't there. So you can go back upstairs, you can try to find her again, but she's essentially disappeared. You actually, when you find Ren, he's actually being possessed by another ghost. His eyes are super red and he's floating. But other than that, like, he's fine. He's possessed. He's fine. He didn't jump off a cliff. Jump off a cliff. He didn't jump out of a window like Clarissa did. So he's basically fine, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
They
fine.
had to do a weird exorcism on him.
They did actually. And you use your radio to do that. That's where you tune into the radio because you see the red light. You basically expel the ghost from his chassis, his body. And then the three of you head back to Hardin Tower. Hardin Tower is where you are in like the Whisper something.
So we found Clarissa, we found Ren. Clarissa's gone. She's taken by them basically. But Nona, Alex, Jonas, and Ren regroup at Hardin Tower, which I guess is the name of that tower. They are not able to send a radio transmission off of the island, unfortunately. And then Ren suggests that they go to Maggie Adler's mansion because she had a boat there. Like, he knows that she had a boat because I guess part of his weird history knowledge or something. I don't know.
Well, I think it makes sense because, like, it's an island and you have to, like, travel back and forth between, like, island and mainland. I assume it's, like, for practical reasons. So, like, instead of having a car, it's a boat. Either that or she's just, like, ridiculously rich and owns a boat for some reason.
Yeah, like, how did she get that rich? I don't know. She has a mansion and a boat.
Maybe she owned the island or something.
I don't know. So then they decide to go to Maggie's house. They had to break in, basically, because it's all closed off. They jump the fence. Sorry, I'm making a drink at the same time. They jump the fence and then go into her house. There's, like, an underground basement thingy, I think. Or is it like
bunker, right?
It's a bunker. Yeah, that's the word. It's like an underground bunker where she has some stuff, so they poke around in there a little bit. Do they find anything?
I think they find, like, old tapes or something, like old video clips.
Oh yeah, they do find weird reels. So they found that. They find some letters, I think, that she wrote.
Oh yeah.
About the transmissions and stuff from the island. I don't remember.
I think that's also where you find out that, like, she was possibly lesbian with her friend, like, Anna something. I don't remember the friend's name, but it kind of, like, hints that the two of them were, like, more than just friends.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it. So after they explore the bunker, they go into the house, and that's where Clarissa comes back, and she is still possessed.
Oh, I don't remember this part at all.
You don't remember that?
I remember she comes back at some point, but I don't remember, like, how or why.
She just appears because apparently they can do that.
Was she, like, wandering around or something? And then, like, she just happened to stumble upon them? Or did, like, the ghost purposely bring her?
The ghost purposely brings her.
Okay.
And starts talking to Alex, and that's where they find out that the letters left behind by Maggie reveal that she had interpreted the transmissions from scrambled messages from the Kanaloa as enemy transmission, and that the ship, or was it a submarine? I don't know.
Submarine. Kanaloa was a submarine.
Yeah, the submarine was actually sunk by friendly fire, and the crew was not killed, but they were sucked into a different dimension. Because the sub had an experimental nuclear reactor. So Maggie and Anna attempted to talk to them via radio, but Anna actually got sucked into the rift as well. Now they want to use Alex and her friends and their bodies to escape the dimension by keeping them on the island long enough for them to possess all of them.
Oh, that's right, because I forgot about this feature, actually, because in the game, you start off, and I think it's like 7 p.m., and it tells you the time as you progress throughout the game, and I think this is the first time you understand, oh, time actually means something here, and essentially you have to get off this island by daybreak, I think, before the sun rises again. Otherwise, you and your friends are going to be trapped on the island being possessed by these ghosts for all time.
I remember when I was watching the playthrough, Clarissa comes in and then they start to play. They basically just fuck with you the entire time that they're there, because the playthrough I watched, when Clarissa was talking to Alex, the entire screen turned upside down, and
that's right.
Yeah, she was like playing a game where she would call out something and Alex had to go look for it in the house, but it was hard because the entire screen was upside down. It's kind of like the game that they played when they're in the fort, where I think it was like Hangman or something.
Yeah, it was Hangman, and you had to answer the trivia questions, yeah.
Mm-hmm. From that point, after Clarissa kind of fucks with you and does that weird game or whatever, you also discover Maggie Adler's plan to fix the rifts by crossing to the other side of them and then tuning the radio from within. And this is also where Alex starts to go back to the past and have weird flashbacks that are with her brother Michael. So the first one is Alex, Michael, and Clarissa on Edwards Island, and they're kind of walking along and going down to the secret beach and whatever, and they're just having like a normal conversation, but Alex still has her memories of what happens in the future. So the dialogue options are like, you can choose to try and tell them what's going to happen, or you could try and like make amends for what happened in the future. And there's just a bunch of different dialogue options, and then eventually you loop back into the present time, and then Jonas will say that you went super weird and are kind of just like standing there and forgot how to move and was like saying something under your breath about like sandwiches or something. I don't remember.
That's like the first time. So like when you get possessed, like that's when you experience the time moves back into the past, and you get to figure out more about Alex's past and her history with Michael and like why Clarissa hates her.
Anyway, after that, a ghost ends up possessing Jonas and tries to bargain with Alex, offering to spare her and the friends if they leave Clarissa behind. And I think, can you like legit leave her?
I think, okay,
I'm
so
pretty sure you can.
I know you can, because that's part of one of the endings, but I think this is when you start to follow through on Maggie Adler's plan to end the whole time loop and the ghosts. And this is kind of, I think, when you start to say, hey, like, we need to go to this underground bunker because it leads back to the caves, and that's how we get out. Because I believe they think the cave was like the first source of like the supernatural thing. Like, I think the cave was the portal because that's where, at the very beginning of the story, you opened it up to begin with.
Yeah.
You first opened
but
it.
I think there's different ways you can end it. You can like take that deal and leave Clarissa, and then she's like wiped from your memories later on when you finish, or you can do Maggie Adler's thing and like make Alex go into the portal and close it from in there.
Yeah, so like when you get to the ending, there's a bunch of different endings that you can take, and you end up in the cave, you tune into the radio signal, and you end up in the alternate dimension where you can talk to the ghosts, and you can tune into the radio stations, and as you do, the ghosts will try to stop you.
Oh, there's also that part where your reflection tells you not to let Jonas listen to his mother.
Oh, yeah,
and then
that's right.
and then he starts to hear that song that she used to sing.
Yeah, it's right before they enter that last door into the cave. Um, and throughout I think it's really cleverly done, actually. They loop this song into the soundtrack. So you'll hear snippets of it as you're playing the game, and it's not until you get to the end where Jonas finally reveals that, hey, this is a song my mother used to sing before she died. And so as you play as Alex, you get to tell him, hey, don't listen, it's just a trick. These ghosts are just messing with you. Um, and as you kind of enter this final time loop, you end up in the alternate dimension. And you get to talk to the ghost. And here's where your endings start to differ. Because throughout this game, you have different choices. And you can sacrifice Clarissa to the ghost, and then you'll exit you'll exit this dimension. Everything's normal. Nobody remembers Clarissa except for you, because you're the one who made the choice. You made the decision to get rid of her, basically. If you chose that option, there's the option where you can stay in the portal instead, and the ghost will take you instead of your friends, and your friends will not remember you. I think that's the third option. And then the other one is where you can just follow through, nobody gets sacrificed, and you end up back on the boat. I don't remember where this event particularly happens, but at some point, Alex ends up in the mirror universe where you become the reflection in the water, and you can talk to yourself. You can now pick the options that you picked before. Actually, I think this happens in the cutscene. It happens based on the dialogue that you picked while you were playing as normal Alex in the real world. And then in that following cutscene, at the end, you'll see yourself picking all the options as the mirror version of you. And so here are like the other outcomes that you can take. And this will all happen depending on the cutscene that you get at the end. These all depend on the choices that you have made throughout the entire game. And these are the personal relationships that you have forged with your friends or destroyed, essentially. So with Clarissa, you can save the relationship between Alex and Michael. So you can sacrifice Clarissa, or you can still save her. And if you save her, she will either drop out of school or continue on with her studies, depending on if you were a dick to her or not. Ren will either date or not date Nona, because throughout the game, you can talk to Nona and you can talk to Ren and say, hey, you guys should be a couple, or, oh no, you guys are not right for each other.
And you can mess it up in the beginning.
You can also mess it up in the beginning. Nona will, she'll either go to ballet school, as she had stated before that she wants to do that, and then she may or may not be in a long-distance relationship with Ren, depending on your choices. And then Jonas's relationship with Alex can either be preserved or destroyed based on what option you pick during your flashbacks with Michael. So you can't actually save Michael in these flashbacks because it's revealed that you did actually travel back to the past. And so if you picked all the options to prevent Michael's death, he will appear in your final cutscene. And if you do that, then Jonas and Alex will no longer be step-siblings, but they will just be regular friends. Or you can preserve your past history. Michael will no longer be alive. You and Jonas will still be step-siblings. And you can either become closer as friends / step-siblings or not. You can also preserve or destroy your relationship you can either preserve or destroy Michael's relationship with Clarissa, depending on your options, depending on what you pick, both in present and past.
Yeah, because there's that other flashback.
There is.
To the past.
Yep.
And it's where Michael confides in Alex that he wants to go with Clarissa and move into an apartment together, and he's basically asking Alex for her blessing on what they do. And I think if you say go ahead, then he's just like, he stays gone. But if you say like no, stay here, then
Then he lives.
Then you bring him back basically.
Yep. I know in my first playthrough, I actually chose to preserve that history where Michael does die. Because I actually didn't know that he could come back if you pick different choices.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
And my second playthrough, I did actually save him. But Alex herself also has her own story. And she will describe her own plans as going off to college, either in or out of her hometown, depending on your choices in the game. Personally, when I played the game, Alex decided to leave town, go to college somewhere else. And then I think you'll take us through that final cutscene where we discover what actually happens.
So at the end, you basically just see the last picture that Nona took of you guys on that boat. As you're going back to the mainland, there is a voiceover of Alex saying what happened to each of them, depending on your choices. And then right at the end, as Alex is talking about what she decided to do, it glitches out, just really, really bad. And then you can kind of hear what she's saying until it glitches again, and then it says, Ren and I are going to Edwards Island for this party or whatever, and I have to bring Jonas along. Oh, it's like babysitting. And you basically, the whole thing is a giant time loop.
Yep. So this is actually really interesting because when I played the game for the first time, I was super shocked that the whole thing was a time loop, and I was like, oh my god, it's a time loop. This game is so good. It did the thing. But actually, they released a DLC called New Game Plus. And this is actually a continuation of the timeline. So if you play the game a second time, continuing from your first playthrough, it actually opens up a whole new set of dialogue for you. In the game, you have newer options to pick. Because you have knowledge of the previous playthrough, it actually opens up those options for you. And then by the end of it, gameplay relatively stays the same, except with a couple new things. But at the very end, instead of going to the cutscene and it loops back to the very beginning of the game, you actually get a cutscene / it's a playable cutscene, I think, where it happens right before you enter Edwards Island. And you are standing in front of a convenience store with Ren and Jonas, and you can tune into your radio. And as you tune into your radio, you hear a message from yourself, which, by the way, those are the new dialogue options that happen in your second playthrough. You get the opportunity to send messages to your past self right before you enter Edwards Island. And you can listen to those as you're tuning into the radio. And you can either, from there, you can choose to go to Edwards Island, preventing the loop and that never happens. Or you can continue the loop and play through it a third, fourth time as much as you'd like to. But I think that was a really good inclusion on the second playthrough, because then you get to experience, I guess, a truer ending. Where you get to break that time loop and take back control. But
all in all, I really like this game. It was a trip. I liked it a lot, though. That's why I recommended it to you. And if anyone else wants to play it, I recommend it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I fully recommend this game, too, because it's a really good imaginative story. And I think it speaks a lot to, I guess, the minimalist style of video games, because it's not usually the type of game that I go for. I'm somebody who does enjoy my open world 3D games. I think this is I think it's something newer, and I think it's something interesting. And it brings back the magic of storytelling, I think, where you get to fully experience the story. I love stories and I love lore, and that's my favorite part about like open world games, especially like Fallout and Borderlands and Assassin's Creed, because you get to find out a bunch of history, and it's a fully immersive story. And I think even though Oxenfree is a bit of a shorter game, and there's not very many, there's not a whole lot of like quote unquote action in there, like it's not a first person shooter or anything like that, they do really, really well in the story aspect of the game, and it fully immerses you in this world.
Thanks for watching Cocktails and Controllers. If you want to see more, be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button and also that bell notification. Let us know what game you want us to drunkenly ruin next as well in the comments section. For now, we'll go ahead and do our big cheers to end us out. To end. Come by.
Bye.